we can get right into Silk as we talk about it. The basket composition, let me actually drop the link right now here. Silk basket composition, because I think it's very interesting. I remember like we talked about this also a year ago on the last podcast. But so we're 7.4% Canadian dollar, 33.5% US dollar, 11% Japanese yen, 6% Bitcoin, 23% euro, and 18% gold. So that's a very interesting composition. Like, can you explain why exactly, like how that came together? And also, like, is that a dynamic composition, or how does that work? Can it adjust? Like, let's say the Japanese yen goes to zero, which could happen, or Canadian dollar, or even US dollar, whatever. And there's a more favorable asset out there. Like, could that be added, and how could that be adjusted, if at all?
Sure. So Silk's original ideation was something that I came up with, and originally we wanted to create a basket that reflected kind of GDP, right? Actual like productivity. Could we create something that's an aggregate of all the world's productivity and trying to like match that onto a stable coin? Eventually, though, the complexity of this reached a point where we actually opened up a part 1 research grant. So we had a researcher that's very embedded into the Forex markets. And so we had the part 1 of the research grant, kind of Forex expert, but then we uncovered a problem. And it's actually a problem that a lot of protocols struggle with in Cosmos, which is the data that we needed wasn't available with Cosmos oracles. So it was actually 25 plus currencies that we wanted a part of the basket originally. And actually Band Protocol didn't support these. Oho from Umi as an oracle solution wasn't up and running yet. I know Agoric is also working on an oracle solution too, and theirs wasn't live yet. So at the time, we were kind of forced to reevaluate of like, we had this hypothetical basket we really wanted to make, but in terms of implementation, the data feeds weren't available. So we issued another grant to this researcher, which was part 2, and their job was to simplify it down to the 6 assets, which is Bitcoin, gold, US dollar, Canadian dollar, yen, and euro. And they did, and it was beautiful. It actually improved the basket, and it made back testing a lot simpler because there wasn't 25 data sources we had to use. There was only 6. But in the future, governance can vote to add assets to what's being tracked for Silk's peg slowly over time. They can also remove assets, and they can also modify the weights. So it has complete flexibility to evolve. And it's a really beautiful system in that sense, because you get inflation resistance with Bitcoin and gold, but you also get volatility resistance because the sovereign currencies still do provide like a good amount of stability in terms of price movement. And people don't realize it, but like when you're holding the US dollar, you're technically in a speculative position. You're holding the US dollar in the relationship of the dollar to every other currency out there, all the commodities out there. It's constantly changing, and there's actually a degree of volatility. So what if you could hold something that was an ETF of stable assets, right? Instead of trusting just the dollar or just the euro, it's kind of like when you invest in the stock market, you can invest in one stock, or you can invest in the S&P 500. And so we wanted to make essentially an ETF of global stability while adding privacy, while adding the promise of over collateralization. And that's what Silk is. It's a Bitcoin solve for scarcity, but we really believe that Silk solves for like true stability.
So I think, just to be clear, like Silk is pegged to these assets, right? And the way you mint it is by a variety of assets. I think also you can mint it with ST Atom. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. So, ST Atom is like the most popular decentralized asset so far for the basket.
So can you talk us through the process of the minting? And I don't know, are there any caps currently? Because I think that was also one of the things that Agoric with IST had, that they have very like low caps. So I think that's why I also didn't really gain a lot of traction yet. But yeah, maybe how it works. And also, like, as some people might be familiar with IST, how does it differentiate? And yeah, what are some of the tweaks and differences there?
100%. So the caps are being moved, are kind of expanding as the market shows demand for a specific vault. So the ST Atom vault is the most popular vault right now. I think in terms of like Cosmos assets, Silk is technically like 50% backed by ST Atom right now, which is super cool. Atom, the strong Cosmos asset with great liquidity, and people are excited to lock up ST Atom, which is passively earning them staking yield, and then mint out Silk And what a lot of people are doing with that minted silk is they're actually selling it for ST Atom on Shadeswap. So they're essentially doing leveraged Cosmos staking, which is a really cool feature that we're going to be seeing more and more of as liquid staking derivatives emerge. And so, yeah, I think the biggest difference from IST is tracking the US dollar versus Silk is tracking a basket of global currencies and commodities. And we really view Cosmos stablecoins as something that should work together to help deepen out liquidity. Like Cosmos needs more liquidity in general. It really shouldn't be PvP. There's like so much money in EVM ecosystems, and it's our job collectively as decentralized stablecoins and projects in Cosmos to actually team up collaboratively, deepen liquidity, and pull in new users and new folks into the Cosmos ecosystem. And it's part of the reason why we actually partnered with IST. There's a Silk IST pool where if you liquidity provide on it, you earn BLD, which is the governance token of Agoric, and you'll also earn Shade, which is the governance token of Shade. We also teamed up with Comdex. So CMST is another dollar stable coin. And the Silk CMST pool, you earn Harbor rewards and you earn Shade rewards. So we want to be a focal point for Cosmos decentralized stablecoin liquidity. And the reason Silk is really well positioned to do that is we're not really competing for being the largest US dollar stablecoin in the Cosmos. That's not our prerogative. That's not our goal. That's not our target. Our goal is to provide a unique alternative for people interested in being hedged against the US dollar. And we also want to be, with Shadeswap, a focal point for the trading activity between the various decentralized stablecoins that emerge.
Yeah.